the number of players you've been able to retain and those you've acquired. Normally you're a little bit more plus stage at this part of all free agency. Or how do you assess where you are? You're a little behind where you would like to be at this point?
I mean, I understand the question and based on the numbers, but I mean, let's be honest, it's always a year-to-year approach. I mean, I think the design of your roster, there's always going to be some variance, but I think philosophically, you have to draft and develop. And if you look at my history as a head coach, is something I'm very comfortable and have a lot of experience in. The biggest impact of our football team will come from the players that are currently on the roster. We got a draft class coming in. We'll continue to be involved in the free agency. But the reality of our business is the economics. I mean, the economics as your players grow and as their value grows, how you keep them all together is that's a whole another competition that goes on year to year. So if you're progressing and the value of your players is increasing, the economics of your football teams is never going to be the same year to year. So I get what the numbers say, but the reality of it is, from my experiences, you got to really develop from within. The biggest improvement that we'll have as a football team is the development of our young players. Bringing in a new defensive scheme and approach. Second year of the offense. Giving John Fossil some, little more of a bigger body type. We played small last year on special teams. So, those realities of staying true to philosophy is how we put the roster together are still intact. But the timing of when people are getting signed and who's getting signed, you're always going to have variance every single year.
Is it a bigger challenge, though? Because, 3-5 seems like you're replacing more starters. You need more. I mean, I know it's a change every year, but there are more holes as far as starters coming into this year, new starters coming this year than in past years.
Yeah, clearly understand how you're seeing it, but I think the reality, what's the definition of a starter? I think as you do lose players, particularly guys that have moved on for larger, financial packages, and the number of plays that they played is now being replaced by could be 2 or 3 different players. Because I think that's all. If your roster's built the right way, the development of the young guys that may have played 15 plays a game now maybe get increased to 45, 50, and then ultimately you want to have the 70, 75 play a game player that would, to me, be in the line of a starter. But I've never approached it having 11 starters on any side of the ball. We all know that, especially with the way these seasons are, the length of them. So, yeah, I've been here before. I mean, really, this is probably the first year that our activity in March has been this low. But the reality of it is, this is really the 11 out of the 13 years in Green Bay. This was our approach.
Who do you see, because of departures and just their natural development, having increased opportunities this year that give you confidence about what they could do with those opportunities now that some of those guys are gone? Well,
I mean, Michael, I know you love the grind of training camp, so I don't want to get in front of it. I want you to enjoy camp and evaluate it and so forth. No, I mean, I think you could really take all of our second, third, and really some of our fourth-year players and put them in that category.
Sam Williams, what do you see from
Absolutely.
him?
I mean, just look at, with DA moving on and the opportunities that's going to – I mean, Sam is definitely probably either in the front of the line or near the front of the line of one of the players that needs to step up. I mean, he's going to be given more opportunities. I mean, Sam has done – he's made impactful plays in the short time that he compared to his play time. So, yes, I think that's an excellent example.
Talk about the offensive line depth and probably adding a couple of pieces in the draft as well. But guys like Matt Waletzko, Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, speak about your confidence in the depth of that room.
Yeah, I think anytime you have long-time All-Pro, as Tyron, has been for the Cowboys for over the last decade, it's always hard to go through that change. We understand that, but really the process of let's say upgrading but improving the depth of the offensive line really happened last year. We added some really good young guys that we feel good about. Excuse me, and our young crew there. Tyler Smith will take another step. We'll keep him at guard right now and see how it unfolds. But I thought we took a big step. If you look at the makeup of our offensive line last year, where our younger players as backups and got to play too. I mean, you could put Brock in the same category. He's been here and No one was as close to Tyler Biadasz as he was. So, I think that's a natural step for him to step in there, and we'll continue to grow. But we definitely do want to continue to add talent and depth to that room.
So your mindset is to keep Tyler Smith at guard, as you just said that?
As of today, I mean, yeah, let's get him, let's fill up the room, and then we'll look at it. Because I mean, the goal is always to get the best 5 on the field. But we've had this conversation every year since I've been here. So when does that occur? I mean, just look at our training camp last year. We didn't have the 5 starters practice together until the week of the first game. So it'd be nice to have all 5 of your guys that you feel are going to be starters, practice throughout April, May, June, and through training camp. Because to me, that's the cohesiveness of your offensive line. You look at that statistically over the history of football, it equates to winning. So, but we have veteran players that don't. They're not going to work a lot in training camp, and so we've gone through that. But we like I said, we took a big step last year with the youth of that group, and they'll be a little younger even again this year because hopefully with this group of offensive linemen coming in through the draft, I mean it'd be great to add to that room. It's an excellent room. It's a room that will definitely improve just based on who's in there today. But yeah, we'd like to continue to add to that.
Hey, speaking of the draft, what are your Speaking of the draft, what are your chances that you might have your starting running back in the draft this year, and what you got going back, what you lost, and the quality of this draft class of running backs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just being at this point, being in tune with the guys that that where they are on the board. I think we definitely want to add to the running back room. I mean, we're not done with that room by no means. Whether it is a veteran or whether it is a draft pick, but yeah, it's I think. Signing Rico back was important. He's definitely someone that definitely was part of the the 1-2 rotation last year, so we feel good about him. But we got some young guys in there that'll be part of that jump that I'm talking about. You look at Hunter, Deuce, and even Malik. I mean, all 3 of those guys. I'm expecting them to take a big jump and compete for playing time.
To go right back briefly to the O-line room, TJ Bass, during the season you guys gave him some exposure. After practice to center, just some of the basics of the position. Is he an option there, or is he more of a guard? How do you all view him?
Absolutely. I mean, ever since 2000 as an offensive coordinator, I've always developed the guards as centers because not only in the snapping mechanics, but most importantly, in the protection and the run blocking and declarations, identification. Obviously, the guards have a little better viewpoint of safety rotation alignments. The mannerisms of the defense, and even going out as far as if you have an experienced tackle that can help you with that communication. So the training of your guards, and TJ is a great example of that, is always in line. But yeah, we've had the ball in his hand. He's comfortable with it, and I look for him to take a big step.
We haven't talked to you since you finalized the coaching staff. Having all the guys on 1-year deals, how you align with that? And does that put more pressure on the coaching staff?
I don't think so. I think the reality of coaching in this league, if you look at the immediate focus, the approach is always the same. I mean, we're all given an excellent opportunity to coach, 2024 Dallas Cowboys, and no one's more engaged in that than we are. So the financial component, everybody's different in that realm, regardless of where you're on a contract. So yeah, I don't see it as more pressure. I think it's just the reality of our industry. I mean, that's what it is. It's those are business decisions, and those are really personal, and frankly, because we are subcontractors when it comes to the financial component of it. But I think you can't lose sight too of the big picture. I know this has always been my approach because make no bones about it. I am extremely blessed to be here. I'm very much engaged where my feet are, and the opportunities I've had personally, I'm very blessed. So I never lose sight of that. So that's always been my big picture approach. And now when I look at the younger coaches, I worry more about them than I do about myself because I know where I am in my career. But the reality of it is, if you don't take the same approach every year, you're really looking at it the wrong way. So your financial structure should not deter from your approach to the season. So and I think like anything, whether it's a player or coach, you go through a business transaction, an opportunity to negotiate. which our guys do. But once that decision's been made, and really, and it's usually been around the combine is where I've always seen the line where it's okay, guys. You've had the opportunity to be in that realm, and now it's time to go to work, and that's exactly what we've done as a staff. So, it's not an issue at all. But I think you have to have the same approach every year, and that's always been the way I've gone about it.
You've been in the final year of your contract before, and has that better prepared you to handle it this time? And are there some things you have to look for when you and a lot of your coaches are in the final year that normally in other years you just don't pay attention to as much?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first time going through it, it was a different experience, and I think it clearly is part of the foundation of why I believe what I believe, and it's something that I've expressed to younger coaches. You have to bet on yourself. You got to remember now. I mean, you can't be successful in this industry without having an ego. The most important part of the ego is ego management. That's where the issues come. So every single one of us is extremely confident in our capabilities and, most importantly, engaged with the opportunity we have. So we're excited about 2024. We have a lot to be excited about, and it's in the reality of it, it's our locker room. It's the players that we have, the engagement that you have. Going in the office Sunday morning at 8 o'clock and walking through the weight room, and you got Fergie in there, music blaring, getting after in the weight room. So, those are the things that we see. That's our reality, and the way our players are engaged, and the disappointment of how our season ended. And so, we're back to work, and we're at it.
How does that jive, though, with putting in a new defense?
I didn't talk to Ferguson because that would have been against the rules. I just said hi to him, and I appreciate him being in there on his own time. So let's get that straight, okay?
How does it all jive with putting in a new defense? And obviously, having to succeed in the first year of the defense with all this pressure, ego, all that stuff, everything on the mind.
Great question. I think, Clarence, really, after going through the pandemic, nothing else is. This is not a huge challenge, and it's something actually Mike and I have talked about that pandemic year because both being older coaches in the league, there's probably some things I think we both would have done differently, the embracement of that. So that's I don't see that as a challenge. Those guys are really going through a normal first year. They're in there early. The defensive staff, and they're just grinding away. They're spending a ton of time together, and and it's just really. Football's still football. We're still going to line up with 11 players on defense. Mike's going to, still run some of the common, concepts that our players are engaged with. But it's really the utilization of how we get to them. It's got to flow, and that'll play to our strength because, Mike's called a lot of games in this league. He has a lot of experience with his system, and to get it in properly, we definitely have the time to get that done. That's not a concern.
What makes CeeDee Lamb so special?
Oh, he's got the whole package. I think when you look at CD, let's just start with the mental component of it. He has a very high understanding of how to play the position. I think he's clearly now embracing the role of how he can affect others. Because he's been extremely productive. You look at his path as a professional. So he's definitely has been everything we thought he would be individually, but now. The responsibility, from that emotional development of bringing others with you. So it was really cool to see him start to take that step last year, and I look for him to embrace that leadership role more moving forward. And then I think his physical gifts speak for himself. I think just like anything. CeeDee Lamb returned punts for us. His dynamic of with the ball in his hands, I think is unique. But. And he can play all three positions, actually four, because he can play from the backfield. So, he just gives me tremendous flexibility schematically to move him around. And, there's really nothing that he can't do from a route tree. And now he has that connection with Dak, which is so important when you look at the great quarterback receiver, duos that go through this league. Dak and CeeDee now are in that realm.
Get back to Zimmer just for a minute.
Yep.
What is the defense going to look like? Can you talk about the changes you're going to make on defense?
I think the biggest thing for the players will be, just like anything, communication will be the first thing that hits them. But it always goes down to the nitty gritty, and it'll be techniques, alignment, stance, philosophy, utilization of, the body types. So much has been made of our run defense. We need to take another step statistically we have improved each year in that area, but it's still not good enough. We got to play the run first and be more situational conscious with that. It can't be all about sacks.
How
So
important
you can be bigger, or different alignment. How do?
Well, that's something that once we get our roster. He has a philosophy of how he wants to play. The defensive tackles. Whether it's left, right, low shade, high shade, all those things. So you got to have flexibility. Most important thing about a system is to have the flexibility to accommodate all the players that you bring into your building. I think it's you got to watch on how stringent and structured you are. But yeah, I don't think you can be big enough or have enough length, particularly in that defensive front. We'll continue to work to that profile, but how we utilize them will really come down to Mike's system and ultimately the players we have in the room.
How important is the addition of Eric Kendricks with Mike Zimmer coming in his first year?
Well, I'll say this: just having the chance to meet with Eric, competed against him a lot, when he was with Minnesota. But just the confidence that he has in Mike Zimmer speaks for itself. He has, he just used his words. It's the best coach he's ever played for, as far as from the defensive perspective. The in-game adjustments was part of our conversation, and he was excited to be back in the system and excited about his opportunity in Dallas.
Offensively, when you look at the scheme and taking a hard look at how you guys can improve with disguise, just be more efficient, where do you see the progression coming as you dug into last year and how to build off of it?
Well, I think just like anything, the way I break it down is you got to win the pre-snap. So what can we do better in the pre-snap phase of the offense? I think our cadence, we took a huge step. We were not where we needed to be, years prior to that. So I thought we took a really big step there. But now it needs to go to another level. It's a weapon. Cadence has always been a weapon. I've been extremely fortunate to work with a number of great quarterbacks that were unbelievable in that area, and Dak is definitely coming into that into that space. So that's exciting. And then after that, we go through the run game, the protection part of it, and the pass game. So the run game is we got to make sure that philosophically we stay attuned to who we are. We did some things early in the season last year, based off of where we felt we were, coming out of camp with the O-line, and I think we made some really good adjustments, right around the bye week that served us well. And then the pass protection was the biggest challenge for our offensive guys, and I feel really good about how we ended there, because there's always growing pains. You just don't have the amount of time when it comes to padded work, through training camp and early in the year. So when you make a big change like that, and no different if you're in the first year of your offense, you're going to have some transition, and you're going to have some growing pains. So I feel like hopefully we're past that. In the pass game is we got to take a whole nother step with the connection between the quarterback and the perimeter guys. So and our guys are engaged. They now see it, they understand it, and now it's we got to utilize it and just make sure we're creating opportunities for everybody.
Mike, what kind of player are the Jets getting in Tyron Smith? And you could describe how you were able to manage him through last year in terms of limiting practice time and so on.
Yeah, definitely. Tyron's special. He's obviously a great Cowboy, and we want to make sure we recognize that. And he has a lot of football left. I just think he's played a lot of football. So the injury challenges he has. It speaks for itself. I thought he did an incredible job last year. I thought our plan for him last year was clearly the best one that we've had in my time here. His professionalism and his approach is second to none. So he was able to operate in that realm as far as how he prepared. But yeah, if Tyron stays healthy, they got themselves a special player.
Going back earlier to that conversation about young guys taking that next step, what does that look like for Mozzie Smith? And then what's your evaluation of what's still needed at defensive tackle?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking for Mozzie to take that step. No bones about it. And I think now if you just look at the dynamics of the room, and obviously we'll continue to add to that room, but he's going to have a lot more opportunity in front of him. So, Mozzie had shoulder surgery. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but so he's going through the rehab phase right now, and I just look for him. he's definitely one of the guys that needs to take that big second-year jump, and I think he'll do that.
Did that shoulder bother him last year? Did it affect his?
Yeah, I think it's something that he's dealt with. Yes.
And his weight, was he a little lighter than you?
Yeah, he lost some weight. Is definitely, this last year was a big adjustment for him. So I think there's a lot that goes into the transition that these guys make, and and he's not immune to that. So I think now that he'll have a better plan, and we need to help him with that plan to be at the proper weight and maintain it.
You feel like defensive tackle is one of the harder positions to come into the league first year and hit the ground running?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that when you have a guy like Jonathan Hankins, you really see it. The expertise and with veteran interior linemen, how smart and instinctive and what they recognize. I mean, I think the interior of the line is where some of the most detailed mannerisms really affect how successful you are. So reading stances, alignments and things like that. So I think that when you look at job responsibility and what those guys have to do, and I think that's why you see some of these bigger defensive tackles, they really play as long as they want to, because of their ability to, now they may switch teams and things like that, but that's a commodity that's very important, and it definitely shows up in your run defense.
Two players that you guys had a lot of high hopes for, young rookies, Obershone and John Stevens, lost them on the same day.
Yeah.
How faithful do you think that was in terms of what impact you all projected for them, and where are they today, and what do you see for them moving forward?
I mean, they look great. I mean, they're crushing it in the rehab. Those guys they all work out together. So the weight, they all needed a weight room. So that's definitely will be a benefit of going through a year, of rehab. So yeah, those guys are. I'm hopefully we can get them on the field, sooner than later. But I look for those guys to make an impact, starting in training camp.
Go back to playing more three linebackers and three safeties. I mean, is that part just bringing them over, Sean? Is that the mindset as well?
Yeah, I mean we're not making any starting decision. I think you clearly have to have personnel flexibility. That's the most important. We're not going to line up in one base defense and one sub defense. I mean we're still going to be multiple, and the multiplicity really be dictated off of who's on our final roster. So I mean we don't know how this draft's going to fall. We could take three defensive players in the first 3 rounds. I hope we don't, but it's you got to trust this process, and it's about adding the right type of player to your locker room. So yeah, we got to have personnel and scheme flexibility, and that's always been our approach.
You competed against.
With the Miami, I wanted to ask, the Dolphins recently signed Neville Gallimore. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on
Yeah,
as a player on and off the field.
Yeah, I think Neville is really coming into his own. I thought he really finished extremely strong for us. I think when you go back, I think history will show. You look at the draft class that came into the league during the pandemic. Maybe those guys needed maybe a half year more. And I think that Neville's one of those guys. So I think his best football is in front of him. Everybody has love for Neville. He's an incredible teammate. Has a huge heart, respected in the locker room. So Miami got themselves a hell of a football player and even a better man.
Coach, I'm asking along the same lines with the Titans getting Tony Pollard as a guy and as a player.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first part?
Tony Pollard, just with the Titans and getting him as a person,
Yeah.
maybe as a player as well.
I mean, Tony's an impact player. Coming off of a major injury, I thought he did a really good job, and I think, you saw him, work his way through the beginning of the season. But I thought the way he played in the second half of the season, that's who Tony is. I thought he had a hell of a year for us. Obviously, he's got a great opportunity for himself and his family there in Tennessee. Stud of a guy, good locker room guy, but just a dynamic player.
Coach, I know you were asked about Tyron before.
Yep.
Can you talk about his commitment to his craft and what makes him such a good technician?
Yeah, extremely professional. Tyron's old school. He's one of those guys that's in the weight room every morning. Takes great care of his body. Still can play at a very high level. Yeah, but he's, with the new schedule that we put him on last year, I thought he knocked it out of the park. And that gave us the ability, because it's not as much about just getting him ready to play, but still make sure he's coordinated with the left guard and the protection help components, and because it's always about the other guys. It's common sense to be smart with veteran players that have played a lot of snaps, but how is that coordinated with the game planning and the cohesiveness of his teammates? And I thought he crushed it last year.
Hey, Mike, Rich McKay, twice in the last week, has mentioned that scoring league-wide has been down the last couple of years. And one of the hypotheses he says that there's more too-high safety looks that defenses are playing the last couple of years. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I don't think it's ever just one thing. I think I think you look at the numbers, the too-high safety, but also I think disguise has, if you're not disguising, you're an anomaly in today's defense. So I think that's part of it. So I think there's a lot more post-snap decision-making responsibility for the offense, more than ever. So that's probably another variable. But yeah, it's I saw the numbers. I was in the meetings, but I don't, from an offensive play call, I don't see it as a high concern, and I just think it's really kind of the ebb and flow of our league.
I know you guys have spent a lot of time constructing the defense since Zimmer has come in, but have you been able to spend any time as far as moving into year 2 as a play caller and the evolution of that?
Oh yeah, no, that's what the weekends are for me. I've gone back and I've looked at the call sheet, and I've already been, I've had at least 2 laps through the situations, 2 minute. We're going to do red zone tomorrow morning when I get back. Looking forward to that. So yeah, definitely. Because we will be better as an offensive staff this year. So that's clearly, we need to take a second-year jump, as a coaching staff, the offensive side. So and I think Brian is doing a great job leading the charge there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm always calling the game, whether it's in the Shire or driving to work, and I think you have to approach it that way because, so many of those decisions are just really your approach and mindsets are developed in the offseason.
Osa seems like a guy who just continually goes about it the right way, his work ethic. What do you see for him in terms of next step and his overall future, and what do you envision for him?
Just performance consistency. He's done so many excellent things. I mean, there's not a young player that can be more professional than him. If anything, he may err on a side of overtraining. I mean, that's how dedicated he is. He's always doing the little things. There hadn't been too many days that I didn't see him in the office. That's just his approach. So when he's in town, he's working. He's always around. He's always working on his craft. He does the extra things. So whether it's boxing and all those other components that our guys enjoy. So yeah, I just think that he's established himself as a player. People know what he brings to the table, and that's the great challenge of being successful a young player, and it's just now taking that next step and being as consistent as he possibly can.
I'm sorry you did it already, Mike. What are the Titans getting in Tony Pollard?
Can you use the answer I just gave 2 minutes ago? It was really good. I don't know if anybody could shoot that to him. But, great guy, number one. Tony's a stud, serious in his approach, dynamic football player. I think just him fighting back, with a long off season, coming off of that major injury. I thought he did an incredible job. For you look at the amount of reps that he gave us, in his play time. But yeah, he's an impact player.
You just went to a few pro days.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just how the coaching staff incorporates in with the draft preparation and what the timetable is you're going forward with the 30 visits coming up and all of that?
It's a great process. I mean, it's intense. As a coaching staff, all the organizations that I've been able to work, this is the most involved that the coaching staff is in the personnel process. Our personnel department does an incredible job, as far as their process, and to be on the road with Mitch has been really cool because I get to spend some time with him, and Mitch knows every player in the draft already. Same with Will. Will and I are in constant communication, so these guys are on top of it. So, but to get out there and to see, these college programs, and see these guys in person is always a huge benefit, and even more so the conversations you're able to have. So, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Michigan were all great pro days. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the conversations and the people that you get to meet or reconnect with, and the information that you get. It just gives you bigger insight because really I don't spend a whole lot of time on college football in season. The most college football I usually watch is maybe Saturday night at the hotel on an away game. So I'll stay up and watch the late game or something like that. So but what I've found as a head coach, the fresh eyes that it gives me, now when I get into this draft process, I think is very beneficial. And it was, just using the University of Michigan, that was really cool. I mean, to watch Michigan march out 20 guys for their pro day, and you're like, okay, this is what a national champion looks like. So I mean, in all the programs were impressive. So, but I think it really helps your evaluation process. But yeah, it's when I get back next week, or really after Easter, I'll spend the whole month of April in the draft room. So, and I'll just have to find the time to get with the offensive staff in between.
Do you meet with every guy that comes through on the 30?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how much do you like to do it at the end, the start? Do you like to get some feedback from others?
Well, we've changed the schedule up, and I think that I like the way we did it last year. It's more of a car wash, format. So we do the group meet, socially when they all come in. And I think that's important to watch them interact with each other, with our whole staff. There's always good things that come out of that. But then also to get the one-on-one time with them. So, yeah, definitely, I meet with each and every one of them.
How do you improve the running game when you do lose a guy like Pollard and you're young at that running position?
Yeah, I think just like anything, you start as a coaching staff, schematically, because obviously a good run game is needs a healthy fit with your action pass game. So I mean, I just really year 2 will definitely help us in improving that realm. I'm confident in that. And then, the development of your players. We have a very young running back room right now. So, I mean, I think it's obvious that we'll continue to, look to add. And, but yeah, it's about opportunity. We put more on their plate last year than the prior years. I thought they responded very well. And Tony Pollard, led the charge there. So now it'll be important for, someone to step up in that room from a leadership role, and I hope all those young guys take a piece of that.
Mike, the NFL game is always evolving, and with that, the role of the quarterback changes a little bit. How do you think what a quarterback needs to succeed has changed from the time you got into the league until now, and how has your quarterback evaluation evolved with it?
Well, I think we all recognize the game's changed. There's more space. The rules changes have created more opportunity to create space. I've always felt there's two type of quarterbacks. They're in-pocket quarterbacks and mobile quarterbacks. I've always been a believer in the mobile quarterback because I don't know what the stats say today. Too much coffee. But what the stats say today. But when I started charting scramble drill opportunities back in the early 90s, the average was about 5 a game. And that's continued to grow throughout my time. And then I think some of the stats they had in the earlier meetings, this is the most movement or, activity the quarterbacks have ever had in the history. And I just think that points to our game. I don't think you got to be special to be able to win all day long from the pocket. So I've always believed that you have to play in the pocket and out of the pocket. And I think you're seeing the out of the pocket production has definitely improved.
And one more with that. How important is decision-making at that position, and do you have to evaluate the way a quarterback is making decisions differently than every other position on the field?
I mean, the quarterback has more decision-making responsibility than anybody. I think that's obvious. I mean, the quarterback's the only player. Well, the quarterback and the center, I've been corrected before on that, but are the only players that have the football in their hands every single play. So, but the decision-making, those guys have is very important, absolutely, because, when you look at the design of your offense, I'm a big believer in job description and job responsibility for everybody, and that's no different than, the players. So, I mean, the closer you align to the football, the more responsibility you have in decision-making, so, and that's always been the case. And, the quarterback has responsibility in the run game, protection, and pass game. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clearly the most important component that lines up with his success.
So speaking of quarterbacks, you talk about the growth that Dak Prescott made last year, and people want to say, is he a guy that you can win big with? Can he break through the playoffs? Where do you see Dak in that?
Yeah, I think those are two different
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
I think they're two different questions. I think if you look at Dak's, development or, his production as a quarterback, he clearly improved. What he was asked to do, his job responsibility of what he was asked to do increased, but his game plan responsibility in some areas went down but went up in others. So I think clearly being in year 2 of that, I think it's only natural to expect more improvement, and we all know the type of work ethic that he has. He's already started that process. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, when we win the championship, it'll be because of our complementary football. That's what wins championships. And I've given this quote forever. I don't know why anybody picks it up because I think it's pretty damn good. Is your defense is the thermostat of your football team. And the offense and defense need to complement one another. And because the defense always should have the ability to keep you in the game. The offense needs to go win the game. So, and I think that's critical in playoff football. And because when you get to the playoffs, everybody's obviously earned that opportunity. So you're playing against the best of the best. And so your complementary football has to be the forefront. So, I mean, if the offense needs to score 18 points, they need to score 18 points. You always want to score in the 30s, but, when you get in those games, one has to pick up for the other. And if you look at our last game, that clearly wasn't evident. So, and that's how we play. That's how we play the majority of our time, particularly the last 2 years. I don't think we were quite there in 21. Clearly weren't there in 20. But I think, our formula for success, the offense and defense playing off each other. A big focal point for us going into 23 was we needed to take care of the football better, and we need to win the time of possession and get the snaps down of how long our defense is on the field. And we accomplished that at a high level. So those are the things that, to me, outside of winning the game, are most important, because that breeds the consistency of putting yourself in position to win. And we just need to continue to work at that. And most importantly, that needs to be our performance level in the playoff games. So, but at the end of it, we're starting all over again. So we got to get back to the basics and get ready and build our roster and get ready to go, win football games in the regular season to put ourselves in that position.
As you move forward without Michael Gallup, there's a lot of youth behind him.
Yeah.
Where do your eyes go in terms of seeing how you guys move forward there?
Oh, all those young guys. I mean, you can go through every one of them. Jalen, JB. I mean, all those guys. Even Crop. I mean, the younger guys. So, I think that's clearly is particularly because of my background as a group that I've always spent more personal time with, and I can promise you our perimeter group will continue to improve because they have the work ethic. They have the quarterback. They have the leader that'll spend the extra time with them to develop and grow that connection that's necessary between perimeter and quarterback. So all those components are in place, and that's why, outside of Sundays, my favorite time of year has always been quarterback school and off-season program. I mean, that's where you get to see the growth in the development of your football team, and that'll be, at the forefront for us this year.
Okay, can I sneak in a running back question? Yeah. Hey, Coach, doing a story kind of on, the talk of the last couple of years about running backs being devalued. Last year, obviously, you guys franchised Tony Pollard. Now he's moved on. How do you look at that situation? Are running backs being devalued, being underpaid, or is it just kind of a cyclical thing, or how do you look at it?
Well, I just think it's kind of reality how the league's gone. I mean, I think 17 games has probably affected that position more than any. I mean, that's a position that's getting hit all the time, whether you're in pass protection or running the ball. So I think the physical demands have affected the financial approach to that position. I think we all recognize that, fair or not fair. And I think that reality is, running back committee is probably the safest and smartest way to go. But when you have that guy that demands 20, 25 touches a game, then you're in a fortunate position. But the reality is, there's a lot of wear and tear on what those guys, have to do to go through a season.
All right.
All right. Thank you.